Let's cut across to London now, where the new king, King Charles III, and the Queen Consort have arrived in London, and they're heading to meet the new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, and then he will meet the Marshal for the funeral process, and then he's expected to address the world at Buckingham Palace later today. So this is live in London, where, as you can see, that's the Queen Consort, Camilla. And then King Charles III is expected to head to meet the new Prime Minister Liz Truss and then the Marshal for the funeral plans, and then address the world at Buckingham Palace. So we will be waiting for the King's address in a short while from now. This is the King and the Queen Consort leaving the airport, heading to meet the Prime Minister, the Marshal, for the funeral plans, and then address the world at Buckingham Palace. This will be his first address as the new monarch. Maida Sharifi is a journalist. Maida, thank you very much for staying with us. As you can see, this is a new era. What are people saying in West Asia about the new king?
In West Asia, so at the moment, actually, there are mixed opinions across West Asia. On one hand, people are very welcoming towards King Charles III, and they wish to continue these strong ties, especially amongst the Gulf. And then you have a set of other fabrics of West Asian nations who, you know, they see the monarchy as having a historical tie with British colonization, which did have some cynical and quite negative impacts on the people, namely in perhaps Yemen, South Yemen. So for these people, it doesn't matter who is going to inherit the throne, because the royal family to them represents colonization and a brutal system. But for the other side and the other regions, perhaps in the Gulf, more namely, there is more of a positive welcome. In Iran, actually, so if you look at the state media and what they're saying, there's also quite a positive tone with King Charles III. There has been links, and they've mentioned his affinity with Islam, which is also a positive aspect for the Arab world and the Muslim world in general. So you have mixed reactions in terms of King Charles III inheriting the throne.
Maida, let me ask you this. I know you've mentioned it, but how do citizens in that part of the world view the monarch? And what has been the relationship between leaders and the United Kingdom? So
like I mentioned before, the way the region cannot be homogenized in one view. There's not a unified view. So with the younger generation, they tend to be a bit more critical of the role of the monarch, especially with the British colonization and the British Empire. And some of the problems we see in West Asia today actually traces back to the time, you know, the way West Asia is even mapped and goes back to the British Empire and the colonial authorities who mapped, and several conflicts have had links that we see today with history. So a lot of people perhaps do feel indifferent to the passing of the Queen and the royal family in general. But in terms of state leaders in the Gulf, they have a very strong relationship with the Queen. She's made tours there. They've been received quite positively and with great hospitality from the royal house. So you really have quite a mixture of views amongst different generations. But places like Egypt, for example, this shows during Nasser's time, there was a strong colonial insurgency which was being crushed down brutally. Same with South Yemen, when the Queen was still she was a queen while colonial authorities there were brutally combating and shutting down the anti-colonial movements there. So you really do have a mixed opinion that cannot be unified. But on a state level, everyone is quite moved by the passing and have sent their condolences to the royal family and the British nation.
Maida, very quickly, I forgot to ask this. How are nations there paying their tributes to the Queen? Because in some nations, they are flying their flags at half-mast. The Eiffel Tower went dark yesterday. How are, kingdoms there paying their tributes to the Queen?
So it's similar nature to what we're seeing in Europe. In Jordan, they've halted the court for now. And it's been in general kind of like a public gesture, the same way that you're seeing in Europe. But like I said, places like Jordan and other places, some things are not business as usual. Same way here in the UK. Of course, it's more minimal level there. But because she has grown she's grown as a global icon, you would expect probably more measures to take place in the next few days.
All right. Maida Sharifi from London. She's a journalist and analyst with specialization in foreign affairs and West Asia. Thank you very much for making time and for talking to WION today.
Thank you.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.